And welcome to people on Zoom. You always have to check if they can hear us okay. Oh, good. Thumbs up. That's always a good sign. So for any of you who don't know me, my name's Stephen. I'm a member of the Sangha team. And it's a great pleasure, actually, and a privilege to be sitting here with Arthapriya.
Thank you. And
we're going to be discussing the theme tonight, which is commitment in the Buddhist life. So I think before we start, though, I'd just like to kind of ask Arthapriya to perhaps introduce himself a little bit. There may be people who don't know him. He's a very senior and experienced order member in Triratna. But maybe you could just give us a little portrait, little verbal portrait of yourself, Arthapriya, if that's okay.
I always find it very daunting when people say, you've been around such a long time. And somebody was asking me over tea, when did I learn to meditate? And, it was back in 1984 I learned to meditate. And then they had much bigger expectations of me because I've been meditating, for so long. I got involved in 1984, and the last few years I've done quite a few things around the movement. I was working at the Manchester Centre for a few years, helping to refurbish a dilapidated warehouse and turn it into the Manchester Buddhist Centre, which we did. Almost broke me, but we did that. And the last 20 years, I've been particularly focused on helping men prepare for ordination.
Yeah.
So I think Arthapriya, who's in Barcelona tonight, lucky devil, Arthapriya wanted me to talk about this tonight because it's a stage of commitment. It's a stage of kind of going for refuge.
Yeah.
So it's quite a privilege. It's been a wonderful thing to be involved in people's lives, because if you're helping people move towards ordination, you have to get to know them, and you have to let them into your life too. And I've met some kind of wonderful people. I've befriended some wonderful people during that time. And I said to you the other day, didn't I, that discerning somebody's readiness is it's like an art form. It's not a science.
Yeah.
It's not you look at how many retreats they've done, you tick boxes. It's about communication. It's about a kind of resonance between you. So I have to work on myself.
Yeah.
It's not just them working on themselves. I need to work on myself to be open enough to discern that.
So one aspect you're trying to discern is the level of commitment that individual has made.
Yeah.
And they have to feel it as well as you recognising it.
That's
in a way.
right.
I think that's what you were saying the other day.
Yeah. And people are so different.
Yeah.
That it will manifest in all sorts of ways. Not two people are never quite the same, and you never compare people. The only comparison you do in a way is you compare them with themselves in a way.
What the progress they've made.
That's right.
In terms of realising or moving towards their potential.
Yeah.
That was one of the themes that Arthapriya was really drawing out in the first week's talk. Actually, that fits in really well, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, could you just say a little bit about how you first discovered Buddhism and your first experiences?
Right. That's quite a story, because I've been brought up as an Irish Catholic, in an Irish Catholic family. Felt a very, very strong attraction towards what I would call the religious life from the age of about 7. And I managed to persuade my folks to let me go off and join a religious order when I was 15. So I joined the seminary to train for the priesthood. And I lost my faith there.
Right.
And I responded to some of the ideals, but I couldn't get myself to believe in God anymore.
Right.
And an image I've used for that sometimes is like you know when a jumper has a pull and you pull it and the whole thing starts to unravel.
Yeah.
Some of the things I was being asked to believe, I couldn't make myself believe.
Right.
I tried, but I couldn't make myself believe. So I got involved in trade unionism. I got involved in kind of social justice, and but there was a big hole in my life, I think. I wanted kind of a spiritual life, but I didn't want God, and I thought you had to have
Two
both
went together.
The two went together.
Yeah.
So when I found kind of Buddhism, it was like too good to be true in a way. You know, that particularly Bhante Sangha talked about the need to change the world, and to change the world, you needed to change yourself.
Right.
Now, I used to go to union meetings. I remember going to a big trade union meeting in Brighton, and there were people on the podium talking about, you know, justice. And you'd see them in the bar at the end of the evening. There was quite a gap. And a lot of my feeling for social justice was actually fueled by resentment, I think.
Right.
And anger. And it never occurred to me I needed to change myself in order to change the world. And of course, if you don't change yourself, you just reproduce the same old world. You know, you see that with revolutions.
Yeah.
Sometimes even worse worlds are kind of created. So I got involved. Another big thing for me was friendship.
Yeah.
Friendship was something I felt passionate about, and then I heard that the Buddha had said that the whole of the Dharma life is friendship. So it was wonderful. It was a relief. It was like stumbling into an oasis after living in the desert. But living in the desert helped me appreciate the oasis.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Well, I suppose that's got some Christian connotations there with
Yeah.
But I was interested. You know, you said that you came from a Catholic background, so I guess ritual, which is the subject of this series, Sangha Night, was a big part of your early upbringing and your early life. So did when you encountered Triratna and ritual in a Buddhist context, did you sort of take to it very easily?
Well, they wouldn't let me to begin with, because when I got involved, I wanted to be a Buddhist. You know, the first night I came along, I kind of said, how do I become a Buddhist? And I don't think the order members were used to that. So they said, well, you need to meditate. So I learned to meditate, and I went on day retreats at the centre, and we didn't so much as chant the Refuges Precepts or anything.
Yeah.
And then one day I was on a day retreat, and they said we were going to do a puja, and a little bit nervously, you know, would we react to the puja? And I loved the puja. I really loved the puja. It expressed something. It expressed something for me that hadn't been touched until then.
Yeah. I mean, that might be quite a good point, because when we were discussing this, we thought it might be quite useful to just do a quick sort of summary of the main points that Arthapriya brought out in the previous 2 weeks, so we can then sort of follow on from that a little bit. I mean, in the first week he was introducing the theme broadly of kind of ritual in the Buddhist life. And he said that there's something about Buddhist ritual in relation to our sort of human potential. It's very much about trying to draw out and realise and find our full potential. And it's a participative activity. It's not something that we sort of acquire or learn about. We have to sort of do it really to understand it, I think. And yeah, he said the same thing that you just mentioned about the Buddhist life being about transformation, transformation of self and then society and the world. And yeah, that one of the things about ritual is that it really engages the whole of our being at a sort of deeper level. That, you know, a lot of people come to Buddhism, and because we come from a Western sort of mindset, we tend to have a rather individualistic or kind of intellectual approach to it. We want the answers, you know. We want some good teachings, and we want to learn how to meditate. And a lot, myself included, found the ritual aspects, doing pujas initially, a little bit daunting actually. I thought, well, I didn't particularly mind it, but I couldn't really access it either. It took me a while to really sort of begin to understand it, you know. But there's so much beauty in it, I think. You know, we look at the shrine here, and we've got the sort of flowers, the candles. It's really engaging the senses, and I think, you know, Arthur City really sort of drew out that aspect. So yeah, he said, I mean, the sevenfold puja. Would you say the sevenfold puja is sort of the main formal ritual element in Triratna practice, or just one of many?
No, I would say it's the most important collective ritual that we do together. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you know, or you could say a little bit about the kind of origins of a sevenfold puja, where it comes from, how it was developed in the Triratna movement. Well, I remember in Bhante's memoirs, Sangha memoirs, he talked about being on a summer school, a Buddhist summer school, and they didn't do any kind of ritual on those summer schools. And he suggested that one night that maybe they could do a puja. And I think Christmas Humphreys, who was the chairman of the Buddhist Society, was very, very sceptical. He said, I don't think you'll get anybody coming. And that night, it was packed out. Everybody came to the puja. And it was obviously something that people were missing, because I think a human being exists on levels, don't they?
Yeah.
There's the level of ideas, and that's important. But actually something that speaks to the deeper levels, the level that sometimes is touched in meditation, sometimes we encounter in dreams, some sort of mythic, magical, level. And poetry touches it, art touches it, nature gives you kind of access to that. And modern life very often kind of squeezes that out, and we've got to have that in our life. We've got to have that magic, that myth, that non-conceptual, that other in our life, I think, to be fully human. I think in a way the roots of empathy are to be found from those kind of levels.
You were saying when we talked the other day that we said a similar thing about in modern secular life. There's a lot of the ritual elements have been sort of stripped away. But people do sort of still cling on to them. There's obviously a deep human need for them, and it sort of emerges sometimes in secular ways. You mentioned going to a football match, which I thought was quite an interesting. I had a similar experience, going to football matches in the sort of 80s, I suppose, 1980s, when it was all a bit more visceral actually, and it was a very tribal experience, but there was a sort of ritual element to it, I think. So people are looking for that, I think, or they need that. You say. Yeah.
I mean, we talked about my first time going to a football match, and it was a bit like. And it was in Manchester. It was like going to some sort of Aztec ritual, I entered the football ground, and this beast roared, and so that's ritual on a kind of tribal level. But a ritual that touched me very, very deeply more recently was my dad's funeral. And it wasn't so much he was a Catholic, so it took place in a church, but actually it didn't really matter to me because the family was there. My dad was so well loved, and we're quite close as a kind of family, and the ritual of celebrating his life, acknowledging that he had gone, that he died together, the grief of that and the joy of that, and being there for each other. It was a really important kind of ritual, and the existential nature of it, because what we were witnessing in a way was the existential fact that we all die. Whether you're loved or not loved, whether anybody witnesses that or not, everybody will die, and it was a really important event in my family, and a very important kind of ritual. And the fact that I was a Buddhist, I got up and talked about my dad at the Mass, and the fact that it was kind of Requiem Mass didn't, in a way, didn't impinge on that really.
Right.
But it focused something.
Yeah.
And then we had a wake afterward. We all went over to the Catholic Social Club, and a lot of my relatives drank far too much of the cheap beer.
Right.
But,
Yeah. That's part of the tradition, I suppose.
That was
isn't
part
it?
of the ritual too, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, one of the aspects that Arthapriya drew out, I think, was the one of the purposes of ritual is because we do it as a collective activity. It sort of helps us to get beyond our rather individualistic approach to the spiritual life that we often perhaps bring to it, and that there's that sort of sense of acting collectively, engaging with something sort of bigger than just our individual selves, and then being sort of inspired and engaged by that. So it becomes a sort of a collective endeavour.
Yeah.
Is that something that you would relate to?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think in a way it's completely understandable. People come to the Buddhist centre. They want to be more together. They want a bit of peace in their life. They come for all sorts of kind of different reasons, don't they? And they're primarily kind of doing it for themselves. That's fine in a way. In a way, that is that's kind of that kind of self-concern is to be valued and appreciated. But the key to real happiness is to see the deeper connections between us. To see that our own happiness is tied up with the happiness of others. You can't cut yourself out of the kind of web of life, out of the conditioned web, and be an island to yourself. But that's the idea we come in with. That's the idea we're encouraged to have in our society. And Buddhism, I think, through friendship, through kind of ritual, through communication, dissolves that down. I think dissolves that away, and you wake up to the joy of other people. And I was at Sangha Day on Sunday, and I was watching. I couldn't get in; it was fully booked. But I watched the Mitra ceremonies online, and it's wonderful when you take joy in somebody else's kind of happiness. It wasn't me becoming a Mitra, but it didn't.
No.
Maybe my joy was deeper because of that. It was, just seeing people grow and develop, and in the puja, you're giving voice to that. You want to grow, to the ultimate level, where there are no limits anymore. I mean, last week Arthapriya talked quite a lot about potential, didn't he? The deepest potential in life is embodied in the Buddha. And our own potential is kind of woken by that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be talking about going for refuge for the three jewels, and I suppose the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And I suppose ritual is particularly associated with the Sangha jewel in the sense that it's a collective, it's the community acting together. So I think that fits in. Maybe now's a good time actually just to say that, yeah, so the theme really of this evening's discussion, I suppose we could call it, is commitment in the Buddhist life. And we're focusing particularly on the third part of the sevenfold puja, which is the going for refuge section. It's quite a big section of the puja, isn't it? You were saying when we met, Arthapriya, that I mean the two sort of introductory sections that we did last week, if I can use that terminology, they're sort of introducing you into it, but in the third section it kind of goes to a slightly different level. Would you say a little bit about that?
It's interesting because when we talked, you said that going for refuge, that phrase, you weren't sure about it at the beginning.
Initially, it didn't sit very well. No.
And when you're a Buddhist, you can get used to the phrase going for refuge, and maybe a lot of the time people think of refugees. When I think of refugees, I think of really enterprising people.
Yeah.
Who will? There was one story on the news a while ago about a grandson who'd pushed his grandmother in a wheelchair across a continent. He was not going to leave her behind, and that kind of drive for a better life.
Yeah.
And to help others.
Yeah.
But Bhante Sangharakshita says that modern parlance, in a way, is commitment. You commit yourself, and there's a kind of lovely story in some of the ancient texts, and it describes people coming to see the Buddha, and some people come right up to where the Buddha is sitting, and they prostrate themselves, and because the Buddha is their teacher, and they sit respectfully at one side. Some people nod to the Buddha. They're not sold yet, they're not converted yet. They sit a bit further away. Some people kind of wonder what's happening, and it's kind of just sit.
Yeah.
And I think the puja is a little bit like that. It's a kind of mythic journey, isn't it? It's an articulation of a journey. God, a journey is sometimes such a cliche, isn't it?
Yeah.
Life is a journey. I think they said that at my dad's funeral, but it's probably a cliche because it works quite well as a metaphor.
Useful, isn't it? Yeah.
So you, the first two stages, you are attracted, to the beauty of Buddhism and the Buddha. You're attracted to that. You are fascinated, perhaps, by that, and but you're not committed yet. Who can say when commitment actually happens, though? It's a kind of there are degrees, aren't there? Bhante said at the level of becoming a mitra. Mitra means friend. You involve yourself with the Sangha. I want to be involved.
Yeah.
I want to be part of this. At the level of training for ordination and ordination, you are committed to that. And commitment is saying, in a way, a difference should make a difference. So if you think of yourself as a Buddhist, you've got to look at your life and close the gap. You've got to start turning inspiration into action.
Yeah.
And this is why we have the precepts.
Yeah.
After the refuges.
Which are part of this same part of the puja.
It is.
Part of the puja. Yeah.
And it's really striking because in the you're going to read this, aren't you? In a minute.
Yes, in a minute.
At the beginning of this section, it says, "This very day." This very day I go for my refuge. There's another version that says, right now today. And I think that what this is saying to me is that don't put the important things off in life. You know, we do, don't we? The really important things we kind of leave for another day, and we occupy ourselves with the less important things.
Yeah.
I mean, I do that. It's kind of mad in a way. And if this is important, one needs to act now.
Yeah.
And you might think, well, I'm not ready. It doesn't matter. Act now in an unready kind of way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Whatever you can do, you do.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I mean, I've come to really appreciate and love the expression "going for refuge" because it has that sort of active aspect to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually doing something.
Yeah.
It's not just sort of saying, "Okay, I think I agree with that." It's actually moving, transforming. So, I think But I think my initial reticence was I had sort of connotations of maybe going for refuge was a bit like you're hiding away from the difficulties of the world.
Yeah.
But I think your comments about the courage of refugees and the inspiring stories of that is a much better image, I think. Yeah.
Well, you know what the Sangha is doing by trying to live the life according to the Dharma is not running away, but developing the strength to absorb reality, to take reality, you know, and to. Sometimes the fear we have about reality comes from the running away. But there are challenges, because sometimes you will feel like hiding away. Sometimes you will feel like kind of it's all too much, and that's all right too. We can't, you know. I remember somebody telling me, I think it's in the Iliad, and it talks about. What's his name? I can't remember the hero's name, but it says in the text, that great hero ran away. And what is striking about that is he's still a great hero, but he runs away. And sometimes you need to do that for a while. You know, you run away, but you run away in order to find the strength to turn and face what needs to be faced. And your friends, the Sangha, you can draw inspiration and support, you know, from them. And you, in your turn, will help them to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's true that that Sangharakshita said that the central act of the Buddhist life is going for refuge to the three jewels. Could you say just a little bit about why you think he thought that and why he said that?
I think when some of you will know Bante's story, he was taken to India in the war as a soldier, and at the end of the war he stayed on, and he eventually became a Buddhist monk, and he was always looking for what's centrally important in the Buddhist teaching, and he made the mistake, as so many people have made, of thinking that becoming a monk or becoming a nun, a woman, was committing yourself to the Dharma life. But then he met plenty of monks who were not doing that. You know, they were just nominal monks, and he met lay people who were really doing that. So eventually he came to see that the lifestyle that you take on, it's important, but it's secondary. So living the life of a monk is can be very, very helpful, but it's not the thing in itself. What the thing in itself is commitment to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And you can have a family and be committed and work on your Dharma life in that situation. You can do it as a single person. You can do it in all sorts of different lifestyles. You have to be realistic, though. You have to kind of, your lifestyle will affect you. If you've got, I don't know, a story from my past. I was once engaged to a girl who had 15 brothers and sisters. And I love that family. I really love that family.
Mm.
But if you've got 15 children or 16 children, it's going to be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
Well,
of course.
you had
I've
four,
got
four sons.
boys.
haven't
Yeah,
you?
yeah. It's
Yeah.
a challenge, but
Yeah.
a good one in a way. Maybe now's a good time to read the verses. Do you think? And so we thought I'll just read the chapter, section 3 of the Sevenfold Puja, which is titled "Going for Refuge" or "Commitment," as Arthapriya said. So I'll read in it's kind of partly in English, partly in Pali, or both. So I'll read the English version just so we can all understand it. Going for refuge. This very day I go for my refuge to the powerful protectors whose purpose is to guide the universe, the mighty conquerors who overcome suffering everywhere. Wholeheartedly also I take my refuge in the Dharma they have ascertained, which is the abode of security against the rounds of rebirth. Likewise, in the host of bodhisattvas, I take my refuge. Just pause there for a moment and just, does anything from that, do you want to say anything about, I suppose it's talking about the three jewels in a way, isn't it?
Just when I first came across those verses, I this thing about guarding the universe, you know, I don't know what I could have made of that, but without wanting to undermine the poetry of it, because it's easy to do that, it means that people who have got to the stage on the path where they really see for themselves how things are, they're enlightened to some degree, keep open the possibility of that.
Yeah.
And so they guard the universe in that way. They make it possible for people to tread the path.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I hadn't particularly considered that line, but so it's good to hear about that. So I suppose, the powerful protectors, I suppose, together collectively might be regarded as the Buddha or the Buddha jewel. And then wholeheartedly I take my refuge in the Dharma they've ascertained, obviously the Dharma jewel, and then the host of bodhisattvas, maybe the Sangha jewel, something like that anyway. So then it goes on to the three refuges, which we normally recite in Pali, but the translation is homage to him, the blessed one, the worthy one, the perfectly enlightened one. To the Buddha for refuge I go, to the Dharma for refuge I go, to the Sangha for refuge I go, and then for the second time to the same three, and for the third time to the same three. So it's making a very explicit. I mean, the first passage is quite poetic, as you say, very inspiring in a way. This is much clearer and much more direct.
There's a lovely. I mean, if you read the ancient text, sometimes you get a man or a woman approaching the Buddha, and there's a kind of exchange. There's conversation. There's communication. And it's a little bit like the Buddha takes them kind of deeper and deeper into, for want of a better word, kind of reality, how things are. And the scales are in a way lifted from their eyes, and they see for themselves the vision of enlightenment. And Bhante says sometimes they kind of, first of all, they can't get the words out. They're so knocked sideways by it. And they say what has been upset is righted, what light's been brought into the dark room. And then they say, Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami. To the Buddha for refuge I go, to the Dharma for refuge I go, to the Sangha for refuge I go. And in ancient India, if you said something 3 times, it gave it, you were serious. It's said that if you asked the Buddha a question 3 times, even if he didn't want to answer the first time, he would answer. So there's another an amusing story about these 2 ascetics. One was living like a dog, and one was living like a cow. So the dog ascetic, these are human beings, barked like a dog, ate from a bowl, curled up, and they thought that was a way to enlightenment. And they'd done this for decades, and they asked the Buddha, is this the way to enlightenment? And he didn't want to say. And then they ask him 3 times and they say, it isn't the way to enlightenment, and in fact you're undermining your humanity. You are going to come to a sticky end if you continue. So, you 3 times
You'll
serious.
get an answer.
You get an answer. Yeah.
Don't put me through that, though, will you? So the final sort of section, really, of this part of the puja is the 5 precepts, which is a whole subject in itself. But anyway, we'll try and give it a little quick. So it comes in the positive and not described as the positive precepts and the sort of negative form of them. But I'll just read the positive precepts if it's okay. So in English, with deeds of loving kindness, I purify my body. With open-handed generosity, I purify my body. With stillness, simplicity, and contentment, I purify my body. With truthful communication, I purify my speech. With mindfulness clear and radiant, I purify my mind. So there are 3 precepts relating to the body, action, I suppose, and 1 to speech and 1 to mind. And then, of course, for people in Triratna taking ordination, they then have a further 5 precepts, which sort of elaborate or develop some of those.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to?
Well,
I
suppose those are the 5 precepts are what all lay Buddhists take, and they're primarily to do with bodily and vocal kind of actions. And the 10 precepts, which one takes at ordination, in a way, are a whole path. They work on the body, they work on the speech, and they work on the mind. So in a way, they take things much more deeply. But in a way, the 5 precepts are a good way of living for all human beings, whether you're a Buddhist or not. If the world lived taking those precepts to heart, we would live in a different kind of world, wouldn't we? And, so the negative precepts, so-called, are things we are trying to move away from, and they're almost kind of a bottom line, that we won't kind of lie. But it's not enough just to not lie. You need to express more and more the truth.
Yeah.
And the truth isn't just factual accuracy, although it is factual accuracy. It's empathic. It's compassionate. It's like sunlight. It kind of prospers growth and encourages life in people.
Yeah.
So the positive precepts are, in a way, the spirit.
Yeah.
They're the spirit of what a Buddhist life should be like.
Yeah. I suppose the term precept is very important, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're not rules.
Yeah.
They're precepts.
The training.
The trainings.
Yeah. It's a bit like if you're learning to be a sculptor or a painter, you apprentice yourself, don't you, to somebody who's got skill in that. And if you are chipping away and you make a clumsy chip, it's not a sin. You just need to learn to use the tools, better. So the training principles and the precepts, it's well understood. Of course, we'll break them. They're training principles, and we break them. We try and put it right. We take them on again.
And also, we can gradually go more deeply into them,
of course,
and see them at a sort of subtler level.
Yeah.
So like you say, it's not just about not telling direct untruths or lies. It's about actually honest speech, positive speech, helpful speech, skillful speech.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, open-handed generosity.
Yeah.
There's there's a whole kind of we're talking about kind of individualism earlier on, and money is a funny thing, isn't it? Money is such a symbol for security and kind of well-being for some people. Yeah. So they get a little bit tight around money, and but actually getting tight around money or possessions doesn't make you more secure, it makes you less secure.
Yeah.
Because you need to get tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
And in the end, Buddhism says you can't actually own anything. You're a temporary steward for things. But like my poor old dad, at the end, everything has to be given back. So the best thing we can do with our things is to share them. Yeah. Imagine again if we did that, on a planet.
Real generosity.
Yeah, in the planet. Yeah.
Yes, it'd be a very different world, wouldn't it? It would. I think unfortunately, time is moving on a bit. I mean, it'd be really great to see. I mean, I think in a while we're going to do a little bit of ritual ourselves. Basically, this section of the puja. But before that, it'd be really nice to just see if there are any questions from the floor, but also from our friends on Zoom. So if anybody on Zoom wants to ask a question, please put it in the chat, and then Adele or Eileen can perhaps read it out for us. Yeah. So, are there any questions from our audience here in the theatre? Any points that you were particularly interested in?
Yes.
This is something that I find quite important, and it's taken me a long, long time to even sort of like realize. The Sangha jewel is sort of like the jewel that I'm finding the most complex in my life, in my Buddhist life, and there is a Sangha that I'm going for refuge with. There is a Sangha that I'm going for refuge with, and there is a Sangha that I'm going to refuge for. And I think there is a difference that I need to make. Yeah.
So when you go for refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, you're going for refuge to the Arya Sangha. Yeah. So you're going for refuge to those human beings who can no longer fall back, who have got some measure of insight. In a way, they can be kind of relied on. Now the Sangha we're part of may well have members of that Sangha within them. But we're kind of in training. Do you see what I mean? And a famous Buddhist teacher once said that at the beginning of your spiritual life, you probably won't come across any of these great beings. And if you did, maybe you just couldn't recognize them as such anyway. But he said what you need at the beginning of your life is you need an ordinary human being who can kind of lighten your way with their counsel. And you can see that, I was just sitting having a cup of tea with the people from the course, and Lisa was talking to them, and members of the team share their experience. That's one of the wonderful things we do, don't we? We share our experience of how we're finding it, and that may be limited, but actually it can be extraordinarily helpful, for quite a long way. I was going to say at the beginning, but the beginning can be quite a long way. The problem arises when you think your ordinary spiritual friend is a Buddha, because then you'll be disappointed, because they will kind of let you down at some point. But if you go into it with the understanding that your Sangha friends yet are frail, imperfect beings, but for all that, they've got a lot to give, and a lot that can be benefited from. I think you'll get you'll get quite a long way if you do that.
Does that help?
Yeah, it does actually.
Good.
I think dukkha plays a role in there as well, doesn't it?
I just wanted to say one other thing about commitment, because this third stage of the puja, this is in a way, it's you suddenly got depth, because you chanting the refuges, you're taking on the precepts, so suddenly you are you're applying the Dharma to your life. You know, it's a bit like you're saying to the Buddha, well, teach me. I want to know. I want to practice. And now sometimes people think, well, when will I know? When will I know that when I want to commit myself kind of further? And I suppose you'll know, you because you'll be in communication with others, hopefully. You can talk to others, about that. And sometimes the next step on the path, it will become, I don't know, it becomes clearer to you as you kind of you move towards it. And I think for me anyway, my own experience has been 3 steps forward, 2 back. So it's not being, continuously progressive. It's kind of,
Yeah. Any other questions, either from here or from Zoom? Yes.
I have a practical question. So you had mentioned a couple times the way in which people approach the Buddha. And I was wondering if you could maybe explain it a little bit, because I've noticed that some people bow 3 times. I noticed some people are on their knees. I know some people go like this.
Yeah.
I know some people go like this.
Yeah.
Some people don't even do this. So what could you provide a little
explanation? Probably be our individualism again, and I mean, usually the traditional mudra, which is a hand position for puja and chanting, is that mudra. And it's said that when your hands are in that position, your hands are in the position of holding the jewel, the chintamani, the jewel of enlightenment in a way. And when you bow to somebody with your hands in that position, in a way, you are recognizing that they have that within them too. And if you go to somewhere like Japan, you go somewhere, Nepal or India, you will see people kind of bowing to one another. It's a lovely gesture in a way. Sometimes people don't want to do that because they've been, like me, they were brought up as Catholics and they don't want to be kind of praying. But think of it more like that. You're holding the precious kind of jewel within the lotus of your hands at your heart. But the Buddha didn't seem to mind how he was greeted, whether it was a nod or no nod, or prostration or whatever. He didn't need to be bowed to, but we need to show reverence, I suppose. If we do that, we're more likely to see whatever we're paying reverence to as worthy of reverence. We've got something to learn. We've got something,
It's probably more important to do what feels authentic to you, rather than what you think is the right thing. Whatever that might be. That may change over time, of course.
Well, I think it will change over time. Because in a way, I think eventually you'd think, well, what I want, why is that so important? Let me do what others are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any more questions, or there's nothing from the Zoom Sangha? Okay, fine. Well, maybe we could do a little bit of practice.
Yeah.
So what we thought would be nice would be if, as it's all about engaging with the actual practice of puja, of ritual, asking Arthapriya to lead us through the third part of the sevenfold puja, the going for refuge part. So I'll
Thank you.
pass the book to you. And we thought, like as we did before, when I think it was last week with Arthapriya, we'll just start with a mantra, and we've asked Sadharaja to lead us in the Shakyamuni mantra. And then, if you feel you'd like to and able to, please do join in. And then those who wish to, please do come up and make offerings to the shrine. I just noticed that there's no candle low down a light, so maybe what I'll do is I'll lift one of the candles down in a minute. Oh, thanks. If you could, yeah, just light one of those. Actually, that's a good idea. Thanks. Get the thing started. So yeah, when you feel you'd like to, please do come up and make offerings to the shrine if you feel like it. And maybe people at home, if you have any home shrines and you feel inspired, please do make offerings to your own shrines at home as well.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, it's got us going. Yeah.
I think a good place to begin with this section is just to bring to mind what really moves you about enlightenment. Maybe it is the Buddha, maybe it's a quality of enlightenment, compassion, universal loving kindness, wisdom, whatever it is, bringing that to mind, dedicating the words of this section to that. And we're going to do some. We're going to do the refuges and precepts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you haven't got Arthapriya's lovely voice. You've got my voice. So it's important that you join in with volume.